In this video, I'm going to introduce the notion of variables and what they're used for, and how we name or refer to variables. All right. So we know that in math, people solve problems all the time. They solve puzzles, right? And in arithmetic, we solve problems having to do with quantities, and we're going to continue to do that in algebra. Now, what if I gave you a puzzle that was too hard to communicate verbally? So suppose I started to give you a very long question right now, like I'm thinking of a number, you double the number, then you subtract 3, find half of that, and then add 2 to it. And if you were to do all that, you get 17. What was the original number? All right, that is a lot of information to hold in your head. So there's a few things you could do to try to handle that complex of a question. First of all, you could write it down, right? And your first choice might be to write it down in English. Just word for word dictate what I said, and then you can sit there and stare at all those words and try to figure out the answer that way. Okay, and that's fine. However, what if you did this a lot? Wouldn't it make sense to develop a compact notation? All right, compact notation. So we all agree that we love it when things are easier. Then there's no reason to make things painful, right? We all love abbreviations, I assume. If you write long stuff like the phrase United States of America, if you're just taking notes in class, it's probably nice to just say USA instead of having to write that whole thing out, right? Okay, so likewise, when you start writing down math problems, it helps to use a compact notation, all right? And that's what variables are used for. So let's say I want you to, if I double a number, so let's stop there. I double a number, and I'm not going to tell you what the number is. It's just part of the puzzle that you have to remember, that I'm doubling some mystery number. All right. Well, the quantity, we can represent that by some symbol. Okay. We don't know what it is. Maybe we can use U for the unknown symbol. All right. Now doubling it, that's multiplying by 2. All right. So can you see how, if we all agree that U stands for the unknown quantity, can you see that 2U is a very, very nice abbreviated compact way to say, all right, somebody wants us to double something. All right. Likewise, if somebody was to say this, all right, it should be clear that what that means is that whatever the quantity, the mystery number is, we're going to take away 7. All right. And so this is, there you go. That's variables in action. Now, what symbols do we use for variables? Now, I used U because you might think of, I want you to think of an unknown quantity, that's why we're inventing variables. All right. But there's really no reason you couldn't use any symbol. All right. That means that there's no reason that you couldn't have a variable that was called A or B or C, etc., etc. All right. You'll notice that in algebra, people traditionally, it's just tradition, it doesn't mean you have to do it this way, but people often use X and Y and Z. All right. The first choice, the most used variable in algebra, the most used letter is probably X. Okay, and there's an interesting story about how that Y, it turns out to be X, and that's supposed to represent chi, which represents, and anyways, it goes back. There's multiple languages you can trace why the tradition happens that we use X. Okay, but there's no reason you have to use. You can use Greek letters: alpha, beta, gamma, etc., delta, if you're familiar with fancy Greek letters, or you can even use Hebrew letters, really anything you like. Happy face, okay, star. The symbol is not important. What's important is that we all agree that it represents an unknown quantity. All right, and that's my Introduction to Variables.